Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us here on the ice. Brought to you by Dokes Book Fuels, Case Financial Group, Toby Hockey, and the Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy. Tonight's guest, we're going back in the Wayback machine. I met this gentleman back in 2003. Yes, I got to put back the memory stick here because this gentleman and I started skating late nights in Anaheim, some open skates. It was always Team Canada, Team USA versus Team Russia. Don't know why. But then it built into a relationship to where I was even in this gentleman's wedding party in California. And furthermore, I don't want to say I got him into coaching, but I think he knew he was going to become a coach regardless. He now coaches the national D1 team for Team Colombia. And correct me if I'm wrong, it's Colombia. And there's a movement for that, which Sam will get to in a second. But Sam Uisprapassorn joins us tonight on the ice as they have successfully continued to build a tradition for the D1 program, winning their championship this past month in Coral Springs, Florida. So we're going to welcome Sam Uisprapassorn here to On the Ice, the special edition on the Wayback machine. As promised, Coach Sam Uisprapassorn. I don't know how long it took me to pronounce your name properly, but it took me a couple of years, I would say, Sam.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty standard. I don't even know if I pronounce it properly. I mean, if you ask Kara,
the spelling is harder, which is why I'm glad you just put Sam on the board, not your whole name, but just fine.
Yeah, I mean, if you ask Kara, she's always like, you don't pronounce our last name right. Oh, I'm the one that had it for 42 years, and you've only had it for 10, so.
Mungo's easy, right?
Mungo's easy.
We'll leave it at that. Kara, we say hello. Thank you for joining us tonight, Sam. First and foremost, congratulations on yet another successful championship. I have to ask you, before getting started with the Columbia program, did you even know they had a hockey program?
No. I mean, the way the story goes is I'm half Thai and half Colombian, right? So my parents met here in Southern California back in the 70s, and which is a pretty typical story here from someone from Southern California. So I was on the couch one night watching the Kings play, and for whatever reason, I decided to start Googling if they play hockey in Thailand and if they play hockey in Colombia. I saw that they do play hockey in Thailand, and then they also had this hockey team, this Colombian hockey team that went off to a tournament in Mexico City. I think that was 2014, if I'm not mistaken. Anyways, so I found their Facebook page, and I sent them a message. Hey, I coach hockey at the university, or Chapman University. I'm half Colombian, and if you guys ever need any help, I would love to help you guys out. And in typical Colombian fashion, because we're very, how do I say this? We're very laid back, and it kind of we'll get to it later sort of people. Months I think went by, and then one day out of the blue, I get this email. Hey, we got your email. We need a hockey coach. You need to meet us in Mexico City in 6 weeks. And I was like, oh, okay. So that escalated quickly. And I remember calling my mom up and telling her, she's like, are you crazy? You're going to Mexico City to meet a bunch of people that you've never met before, and are they even good? And I said, I don't know. I guess we'll find out. So as the story goes, I basically coached the team for the first tournament through YouTube, essentially. I set up this real basic fundamental defensive system and forecheck. I was like, here's what a 1-2-2 looks like. Here's what a box plus one looks like. Here's a very fundamental breakout, just pulling these YouTube clips from all different places, finding NHL, clips with NHL references, within them. And I was sending this over, here, so that when we did meet in Mexico City, it wasn't a foreign concept of what I would be implementing. I went with a very open mind. I didn't expect a whole lot. And by the time I got to Mexico City, they always played that tournament first week of June. So I think that was like June 15, June 16, somewhere around there. And I showed up, and I actually ran into what seemed to be a pretty good / decent hockey team. And one thing that we have to keep in mind is we actually have players that are based here in North America. And we have at that point, we also had players that are based over in Europe as well. So the team's basically comprised of guys that spend like their whole year on the ice, and the other half spends like a week on the ice. And what I can tell you is, I'll fast forward. I mean, it was really interesting to see, Brazil having a hockey team, Argentina having a hockey team, obviously Mexico having a hockey team, and then us, right? And I can tell you, there's a lot of talent in the Brazils of the world, the Argentinas of the world. But Mexico came out on the ice. I'll never forget this. The first time they came out, and I looked over. I'm like, good Lord, they look like an NHL team over there. I mean, Mexico had a very, very good squad that first year, and they still do. And, we basically just went right through the tournament, and I got them in the championship game, and then here we are, right? 6 years later now. We've won 4 out of 6 Latin American championships, whether played in Mexico City or out in Florida. And, like I said, I mean, it went from researching something on your iPad to like, now I'm here. And it's just a serendipitous thing.
It's more than serendipitous, considering where you and I began our coaching career in Southern California. Did you ever, I mean, obviously just, like you said, just doing a little bit of research, did you ever think that you would go into this international world of coaching, into the International Ice Hockey Federation Division I setup, and where it has taken you, not just for your own personal accolades, but you as an individual who is breeding the next generation of potential coaches and players all over the world?
Oh no, I mean, no, I would have never in a million years would have imagined this. Like, if you would have told Sam the Pee-wee at the age of 10, hey, you're gonna go do this one day, like, I would have been like, no way, like, that's crazy. I mean, if you would have told me when we first started coaching together that opportunity would present itself, I wouldn't have believed. There's no way I would believe you. But now it's here, and I'm just psyched to go for the ride. Quite honestly, I mean, I'm really proud of what we built. We built a federation from the ground up. There's a lot of people back in Colombia that deserve all the credit in the world for that. And then the fun thing is, like, well, where do we go from here, right? I mean, we're scheduled. We're obviously 2020 happened, and we're supposed to play in our first IIHF tournament last year. Then we were supposed to play it this year. Now it's getting thrown into 22, just due to, we were supposed to go to Germany, and Germany was going to impose I believe 10 or 14-day quarantine on people coming from Colombia. So that just wouldn't make a lot of sense. So yeah, I mean, I would have never imagined that we'd be sitting here today talking about this topic.
You mentioned your background, half Thai, half Colombian. Did that present itself was there a language barrier learning and working with these players? I mean, you mentioned some of them are stateside, some of them are Europe side, some of them don't even get on ice. How did that work itself together when, not only in Mexico City, but even your last month's tournament, putting this chemistry together on the ice to win 4 to 6 championships?
Yeah, so I guess I'm bilingual, right? I read, write, speak
I know you've said
Spanish.
some words to me behind the bench before, and I never understood them. That's why I threw pucks at you. But
but yeah, so here's the little dirty secret. We actually all speak English together, and I kind of like it. I kind of don't like it, because I wish it would. Yeah, sometimes I go, man, these guys don't want to hear this, me speaking with my English. I still have an accent when I speak Spanish. But one thing I established early on was we had a rule. in the hockey setting, we spoke English because to me, hockey's a universal language, right? It's no different than if you're coaching the soccer team down there. Soccer's universal, hockey's universal. And I said, all right, here's this team I have two rules on the national team, and that's it. One is in a hockey setting, we speak English. And if you're wondering what the other rule is, it's really simple. There's no drama here. All right. If you want drama, I put you on the next plane home, you're done, and onward we go. And those two rules have seemed to work out pretty well so far. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of like disappointing. We've had like Bleacher Report will put people in our locker room, and the NHL puts people in our camera crews, I should say, in our locker room. I think they're like waiting for me to come out and like pregame the team in Spanish, and I pregame the team in English, and like you could see the guys like looking at me like, really? That's it? And I'm like, yeah, man, what'd you expect? Like, so, and it's always interesting, like when we go to the tournaments, especially the last two have been heavily covered by the hockey media. It's always like they're expecting me to pregame in Spanish, and it just doesn't happen. So that we'll answer a little bit more about the communication between me and the players.
When you talk about the coverage of the last couple of years, having the tournament in Florida obviously helps. It's because it's right near the Panthers ice den, if my memory serves me right.
It's in the Panthers ice den.
It's in the Panthers ice den. Okay, so it's right there. I mean, it's a hockey hotbed, for lack of a better term. It's more of a hotbed there compared to playing a game in Mexico City, I would assume. When you talk about the coverage of these teams, why is it, do you think, that internationally we're starting to see teams from places like you mentioned, Brazil, Argentina, Lebanon, Puerto Rico, Jamaica? I mean, Jamaica had a bobsled team in '88. I didn't think they'd have a hockey team in 2020.
Well, I mean, I think one thing is, the expats that you see up in Canada from Jamaica, from Lebanon. I mean, I'll tell you, those teams are like phenomenal talent there. So yeah, I mean, you got that factors in, and at the end of the day, I mean, we're now becoming a global society, and the world, in my view, has shrunk. Right? I mean, I'll give you. So these guys down in Colombia, they get the subscription to the NHL Center Ice, or I think now it's ESPN's in charge of it, whatever.
ESPN Plus, whatever it is.
Yeah. Which I'm pissed off about because they black out my Kings on there, and I don't have the right. Anyways, you know how it is with TV and all that. But so these guys down there, that's how they're watching hockey. I mean, those guys watch more hockey down there than us North American folks do up here. I mean, they'll go through everything. They know players, they know teams. They don't know if maybe there's something that they're a little bit fuzzy on is more of like the historical side of the game, right? They're not going to have much of a point of reference, before like the mid 2000s. But they're eager to learn it. So I mean, and a side note, not hockey related. I mean, it's crazy because like they'll walk into the locker room, like one of them was wearing a Steelers hat or a Steelers shirt one time. I'm like, do you know the Steelers are? He's like, oh yeah. I mean, I'll have like full blown WhatsApp conversations with these guys on NFL Sundays, and they're like, hey, your Rams look really good today, or hey, your Rams look like garbage. What's up with Stafford? I mean, yeah, I don't want to get into the Rams. I'm still heartbroken on that. Yeah. Let's just leave that alone.
So there wasn't a communication barrier with these players, and moreover, these kids. I mean, they're young men. I mean, they know how to play. They study the game just like you or I would, even more so. And they want to prove that to their country they are good hockey players. They're proud to represent their country. And I think it's also a privilege aspect. Wouldn't you agree, Sam, that they get to don their national colors in a different way other than sports like soccer?
Yeah. I mean, yes. And a lot of them have a roller hockey background. Well, actually, let me rephrase that. All of them have a roller hockey, right? And I mean, they've been accustomed to going off to, the big international roller hockey tournaments. Colombia actually hosted one, I believe, in 2012. We hosted the big. I'm completely clueless when it comes to roller hockey, but that's something that I do know is that, like, for some of them, it was like, oh, I've done this before. I just did it on roller. Now I get to go do it on ice. Um, and yeah, I mean, we're all proud of the fact that we get to go out and represent the country. And that's the one thing I remind them of. That's my first pregame to them. Now is, hey, just remember you're doing this for something that's much greater than yourself, right?
The name on the front of the jersey, the emblem on the front is worth a whole lot more than the name on the back. Sam, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about just how it's not one D1 team, but rather it's a development and a culture in Colombia and what it means to them internationally for a hockey program such as this. Stay with us. We'll be back on the ice. Back with head coach Sam Uisprapassorn of Team Colombia. Sam, you don't coach in the amateur level anymore. No more. The Beach City Lightning no longer exist. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm. They don't exist anymore.
So we still have Chapman U.
Yep.
Another program that you and I kind of started together back in the day. It was one of those random conversations. I don't know if it was at the Blue Beat or if it was sushi lunch or Korean barbecue. I forget. But it was just one of those questions where you said, you want to start coaching another hockey team? How did you continue with Chapman U, and how has that program blossomed from gone to the days that you and I have skating competitions with the players to now being an accredited program?
Yeah. I mean, so when I was at Chapman, we played. I think when you were helping us out, we're playing like on kind of like it's a little bit more underground, right?
Under
And
club hockey. Like, it wasn't even club hockey. It was
no, we
below
weren't
club
even.
hockey.
Yeah, it was like, well, we were just I saw it underground, and yeah, back in 2011, I think with 2010, I returned back to Chapman. They're getting their team back up and going. I said, oh, I'll help you guys out. And here we are, 11 years later. It's an ACHA Division II program. It's had its highs and it's had its lows. Right now we're on a high. We have some just two phenomenal kids from Canada, another kid from Russia, and then we've got this great mix of of players from the U.S. Some from California, and we've got girls that play on the team. I mean, who are just an absolute delight to coach, and they contribute. I mean, we had a girl in goal, and she pulled out a great victory a few weeks ago. Against really pretty formidable opponents was what we're seeing. So that project is a whole lot of fun. We kind of hit the skids there for a few years, and now we're seeing that it's like this rejuvenation of the program, which has been a lot of fun to go through.
That's got to be awesome to hear. I mean, it's good to have its renaissance years, and we know that there's ebbs and flows with hockey programs as such. But let's go back to this Team Colombia issue. Not issue, but it's more than just one team. I mean, if you check out their website or you check out their information, you have a U17 female program that competes in the NATMs. You have a U16 program as well for the males. How did this, develop into a, kind of what you see from a Hockey Canada, USA hockey perspective, but in Colombia now?
Well, I think that's, something that we as a federation, have always known that we would have to set our sights on, right? I mean, one thing is to have your D1 program, pumping on all cylinders. And then when I went back to the federation about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and I started thinking, hey, guys, you got to know what's coming next, right? I mean, think of like our development program, whether it's here at USA Hockey or Hockey Canada. I mean, we start watching. I mean, kids start popping up on our radar at what, 16? I want to say here in the
Even
U.S.
young, 13, 14
Right.
years old, they're starting to get on lists up here.
Yeah, I mean, here, like, that's the first time that we start seeing kids. I want to say it's like around their 16 under year, and then we have our developmental program, which we see. I mean, it's turning out these tremendous teams that get to go battle it out at the World Juniors, right? Which makes it a whole lot of fun to watch. Um, So I went back to the federation. I was like, "Hey guys, we got to focus on that generation over there. Like, we got to start watching the young kids. Like, this is great what we've done over here with the older guys, but you know, that's not sustainable, right? I mean, you're going to run out of players. You're going to run out of talent here. So we started developing our 16 under team. Our 16 unders are now, they've won that LATAM tournament twice now. So they're like back-to-back champions of that. Our women's program we've always had. The women's goes back to the days of playing in Mexico. That's a tough team for me to coach. It actually gets a little emotional at times because I relate to those players really well. Just having two daughters at home, so I've had some moments, like some like hey, where I'll tend to get a little emotional coaching that team because those girls want it so bad, and it just every tournament they play silver, silver, silver. Whether they run into good Mexico teams, Argentina teams, they just ran into a really good Puerto Rico team, and they've just never been able to cross that threshold to winning the gold, which is rather unfortunate. And then we've got a 12 under group that's really coming up. You'll appreciate this. We have Coach Eric, who's actually from Canada and now living in Colombia, and he's doing a hell of a job with those kids. It's almost weird for me because that's like the only team I don't stand behind the bench for in our whole program. And which, it's kind of nice, but at the same time, like, I also miss, being around those kids as well. So that's the whole story of like development, more from anything from like the team perspective. But really, I mean, if you want to talk about development, it's like, how did Colombia get here? You really got to go look at like the roller hockey legacy that the country has. Because that's really where it all started. I mean, I used to not be too much of a believer in roller hockey, and over the last few years, there's no doubt that it just develops the skill, the hands, some of the hockey sense, and Colombia is definitely a byproduct of the development that comes from roller hockey.
You mentioned the inline roller game from an individual perspective. How do you build? I guess that's the coach's job, is to build the chemistry from a team perspective. But going one step further, how do you develop the national identity of a program like Colombia when players are playing all over the world? And where does the funding come from? How do players become involved? Is it a scouting procedure that is done by the coaching staff, like yourself and Coach Eric, to identify these players and then reach out to them and say, "Are you interested in playing for Nation?"
Yeah, I mean, actually, there's not enough of a player pool to like really be able to go out and scout, which is rather unfortunate. And pretty much the way that this all gets developed is, yeah, I mean, from a funding here, let me take a step back. From a funding standpoint, a lot of it is self-funded, right? Families pulling together. You got to remember, I mean, Colombia is, I would tell you, it's not a third world country, yet it's not a first world country. And at the end of the day, you are still limited to your resources, right? Um, they took a hit over the last year. I mean, all of Latin America took a hit over last year. If you went to our players and said, "Hey, I'm going to see you every 90 days," they'd all say, "Yeah, that's great," until you got to pay for it. So there is some funding that does come in from the Colombian government. After we were able to solidify our IIHF membership, we started getting some support. but the support's it's so limited, right? I mean, you know how expensive hockey is. I mean, can you imagine the cost it was this last tournament? We had 75 kids there, split between our men's team, our women's team, and the 16 and 12 unders. Oh, and a second division team. So that's a significant cost if someone were to cover that whole net.
That's a lot of players representing one nation that you wouldn't expect to see represented. I mean, you think of Colombia, you think of a couple other names. You think of men's soccer. Don't want to bring up 1994, but we will real quick. But you don't think of hockey as being that IIHF footbed into, this sport. What does it mean to a Colombian player to say, "Hey, I play hockey and I'm from Colombia"? What does it mean for players? Have you ever asked them that, or does it sneak in the back of their heads?
I think at times it's a little surreal. By the way, back to the soccer thing. I usually don't wear my Colombian soccer jersey, but there is a qualifier that starts in about 45 minutes.
Yep.
So today's game against Paraguay, and I'll just tell your listeners, there's no. I mean, if you want to be a miserable person, just fall in love with your national team and the Canadians. I mean, I don't know if you're following.
Oh, I am.
They're looking
It's
really
minus
good.
10 in Edmonton for their next game against Mexico, and we hope that plays in a quote-unquote best home field advantage scenario.
Well, I might have to watch that game because yeah. Anyways, but that's the whole story. So just I don't like cruise around in my soccer jersey all day long. But yeah, I mean, I think the players have an understanding of what they represent at the end of the day, right? And I could tell you that in our last tournament, we hit some bumps. I mean, we were challenged in that last tournament, and I think that from my perspective, I had to kind of bring them a little bit more together. Which that's a challenge in this setup, right? You got to remember, I only get them for a week, and then I get to there's no training camp, there's no practice schedule, there's none of that. And when we go to South Florida, there's a wild card because I got 4 or 5 guys that live in South Florida that come and go from the team activities, right? But I think at the end of the day, we have a very professional culture. It's a very proud culture, and I think through that they just go, yeah, we all know what we're there to do now. Whether it's myself, whether it's our players, and it's a very it is a very straightforward, rigid environment until you get to Sunday night, and then on Sunday night everyone has fun. But yeah, I mean that kind of gives a little bit of lay of the land from a hockey culture perspective.
With the advancement of technology and media coverage for this sport, is it easier, or do you find the players easier to coach from Colombia as opposed to the players you coach or work with in Southern California?
I would tell you, and this how do I say this? What I noticed is the players, the Colombian players, the Colombian-based players are very eager. They're very enthusiastic. They want to learn the game. They want to do their best. They want to represent. In comparison, I think at times, I'll just kind of like leave it to the U.S. side of things because I obviously don't coach in Canada. Maybe it's different. I mean, and I think you and I went through this, right? Like over the years, I mean, there's moments where I thought like, wow, this kid is like, he just thinks that he should just be able to play hockey, right? I mean, there's I hate to say it, but I mean, I stopped coaching youth hockey because of that entitlement that I started seeing from kids and quite frankly from parents, and that really drove me away from wanting to be a part of that. And I've kind of found a good niche for me, a good fit. I always say like, short of the Kings calling me tomorrow, I've got the most amazing coaching job in hockey. I coach my alma mater on one hand, and I coach my mother's homeland on the other, and in a country that I'm very close to, like culturally. So yeah, I mean, from the lay of the land, I do somehow, some way, it is easier to almost coach the Colombian kids. I mean,
Do you
just
feel that
flat
there's
out.
just too much going on in Southern California? Like it's pushed to the wayside, or like you mentioned, it's more of a privilege or less of a privilege to play hockey. It's more of a hobby. Whereas in Colombia, like you said, there's more of an eagerness, there's more of a pride to learn a new skill, learn a new sport.
No, not so much, because I think Theo, one thing that like the Colombian guys look at this is some of them get really good opportunities to leave the country, and actually go play like professional roller hockey in like Europe. So I think they kind of see that and they go, well, this is, Colombia's a beautiful country, and and all those things. Like if you're like you're not walking around anymore, and like you're not in a scene from Narcos, right? Like that's those days are done. I mean, quite frankly, I mean, is there still an element of it? Yes, there is. Is it prevalent? No, it's not. Like, do I feel safe walking the streets of Bogota at night? Yeah, I do. It's fine. Just don't go in the wrong areas. You'll be fine. But that's anywhere in North America too, right? So what I would say is, for a lot of these kids, they're looking at like, this is my ticket out. Because I mean, one thing that we have to appreciate here in North America is everyone wants to come to art, like whether it's Canada, the US, like these guys all want to be here because we live in a great place, right? So that's kind of like the difference I see in the dynamic.
So we spoke a little bit about Colombia, its culture, its hockey importance, the players that come back. We haven't talked much about you, Sam. Outside of the LA Kings giving you a call, what about Sam Welly and the Ducks giving you a shot? Would you entertain that offer if they called you tonight?
Of course I would.
Of course. There is a new
Yeah,
GM opening. They are searching.
yeah.
What do you consider? You've always asked me this question, Sam. What is your 6 month, 2 year, 5 year plan? What is your idea of seeing yourself as being a coach in the next 5 years? And what do you consider, a not a lofty future, but a goal you'd like to hit?
That's a good question. Because of the exposure I received over the last few years in in the Latin American tournament, I had um, one of the NHL.com writers. God, I'm blanking on Williams' last name all of a sudden. But Williams been down last few years, and we've to cover the event for NHL.com. We've got to know each other. He said, "Hey, are you familiar with the NHL Coaching Association has a BIPOC program?" I like looked at him like, "Well, what is that?" And he's like, "It's the Black, Indigenous, and People of Color program." Because I kind of started seeing this. I'm like, NHL is going to have to do something, right? I mean, all the guys standing behind the bench all kind of look the same. And he said, "Hey, I think you'd be a good candidate for this program. Would you be interested?" And I said, "Of course." And we kind of a few emails were traded, and next thing I know, like, I'm in the program, and it's been phenomenal. I mean, it's given me access to I actually, one of the things that I got to see right out of the gate was how the Ducks prepared for training camp, right, for their training camp practices. And they dropped a GoPro, like multiple GoPros, into the into the coach's room. And it's just amazing to see how that. I mean, I might not be a Ducks fan, but I became a Ducks fan, and just watching how Dallas Aikens like really puts things together. Thought that was absolutely phenomenal. I got to do breakout sessions last week with a few assistant coaches, coaches from the league. And I personally, yeah, I'm in a crossroads, and I would love to go into coaching. Quite frankly, I'd love to go into being a video coach to start. I don't know how I do that at 42 years old with three kids and a wife. Because we all know that the road to any NHL bench, if you're even that lucky to get to one, that's a hard road. And I don't know. I mean, I think I have good leadership traits that could be super beneficial. But I mean, I'd have to become a real true student of the game of hockey, and I have no problem admitting, like, I'm a simple-minded hockey coach, right? But what I've also learned over the last few years is the game's evolved. It basically evolved within the matter of like what feels like to me 3 or 4 years. And I'll give you a point of reference. The team behind this shoulder, my right shoulder right here, that's the 12. That's the 12 Kings, right? That's the first year they won the cup. I believe that the 12 Kings and the 14 Kings, there's no way that they would make a run for a cup these days. No way. And I mean, I'll debate you on that topic all day long. I just think that the game has changed so much that a lot of those players would not even be relevant hockey players today in the NHL. But by the way, they're phenomenal talents. They did a great job for us. But I mean, things have just changed that much, right?
The game has certainly evolved. You do have a tremendous background in the sport, great leadership qualities, as we've seen on reference, winning 4 of 6 championships with the D1 program. Sam, you mentioned your 2 little firecrackers, the honey badger. I haven't seen the honey badger in quite some time, but the third, the youngest of the 3, have we got a pair of skates yet? And if not, why not? And secondly, will you allow him to enjoy this game the way you began?
So here on the skates, Karen and I have skates on his Christmas list for this year. So I'll be going down Hockey Monkey here in a few weeks to pick those up. And I'm really excited. I think, maybe next week for the Thanksgiving holiday, I'll take him down to the rink. And, he calls it the drink. He says the hockey drink. And I've molded him into so far. I mean, the kid's had a hockey stick since he was 1, since he was able to walk. And all we're working right now is I'm just trying to get him to push a ball from point A to point B. And look, I mean, as much as I have this hope and wish that he were become the next Connor McDavid, I'm also trying to be rational about it, right? If the kid's just not into it, he's just not into it. I mean, why force it? I mean, it's not going to be fun to him, and he's going to be over it, So yeah, I mean, that's how I'm looking at how I will handle hockey in our household, and I'm actively working on trying to convince the honey badger that she should be a lady duck, because I think she'd be a good little hockey player.
She is the fiercest one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the middle one. Sam, before I let you go tonight on the ice, is there any people you would like to thank here on the mainland as well as down in Colombia for your opportunities, but also just in general for such a great run of success of late with the national team and the program, the development program?
Yeah. So I mean, I thank you for getting me into coaching. 2, I think all the players that I've coached over the years. I think that one thing that that a lot of these whether it's their players that I coached in youth, some of the families, I mean, I carry those people onto that bench, and all those experiences, all those things I learned over those years. So I think players, whether they're current, whether they play at Columbia or Chapman currently, or they were the kids I coached throughout the years in the past, because that was a real learning experience, not only for being a coach but also being a parent. And then hey, the guys that we have right now helping me coach at Chapman, like I owe I just that a gratitude I have for them is beyond belief, because I mean it's a good staff that we have over there right now with Coach Traden, Alejandro, and we have a great student coach this year in Daniel. So I want to give those guys a shout. And then, when it comes to, obviously my family, Kara.
Just lost Sam. We'll hopefully get him back here in just a minute or two. Really want to thank, let's see if we can get him back here.
What happened?
I lost you. I don't know what happened.
I started thanking people, and I don't think your live stream likes me thanking people, but I guess I'll just pick it up.
You ended with Kara.
Yeah, I mean my family. Kara, the kids, my parents, mean, I think one of the most emotional things I've gotten to do in coaching hockey was my mom was actually at the second year we won in Mexico City, and they brought her down the ice, and she just looks at me and she's like, I guess my investment in hockey paid off. And I'm like, I guess so. Come enjoy this. So, that, and then, all the folks back home in Colombia, I mean, just a great group of people at the Federation. Awesome. I mean, Canadians and Americans need to understand that there is such thing as a hockey mom in Colombia. I mean, there's all these parents down there that are like just get completely behind what we do, and it's just absolutely awesome to see them at the tournament. So, I mean, all in all, I'm just grateful for I'm grateful for picking up the game of hockey. Thank you, Wayne Gretzky, for coming to LA, because I don't know if he doesn't come here, I don't know that you and I wouldn't be friends. I don't know that I'm sitting here talking about this today. I don't know what my life would have become, quite frankly. I mean, I don't think I would have gotten anything bad, but hockey made me the individual that I am today.
There are a lot of good memories having you behind the bench with me, Sam, and as well on the bench, sporting the 14 Whalers jersey to the Friday nights, Team North America versus Team Russia, our countless tournaments, whether it be Vegas or Colorado Springs, and then seeing you evolve into continuing in the Chapman program and, taking on this national program with Team Colombia, which is certainly an amazing job. Sam, I really want to appreciate your time tonight. Thank you for taking this little bit of time to shine a little bit of a light on, an IIHF program that we wouldn't think of. And
no, I appreciate it. No,
it's, I wish you the best of luck in 21 and the rest of 22, and look forward to seeing the rest of the medals and these players getting together wherever they can to compete. And you never know, they might be in the Olympics one day, right?
Yeah, it's a tough road, but that's ultimately the plan.
Coach Sam Uisprapassorn, Team Colombia, not only with the D1 program, but helping out with the U16 and U17 female. Thanks for watching here on the ice, bringing more goodness to the greatness. We'd like to thank our sponsors, as always, Dokes Polk Fuels, Case Financial Group, Toby Hockey, and the Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy. We'll be back with you on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 6 o'clock. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves and take care of your neighbors. Bye-bye for now. Welcome to Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy, your world-class academic and hockey training facility created to maximize each student's athletic and academic potential. Blackjack Stewart Arena, home of the Buffalo, is inside the 46,000 square foot complex, as well as a curling rink and other facilities. The students have a unique combination of successful, well-rounded education at Pilot Mountain Collegiate Institute and the professional hockey training in an encouraging community. The years of experience of on-ice coaching propel our students to the next level, both mentally and physically, in a professional environment.